The cretins of technology, I like to call you too.
I like that.
Not the creatines, the cretins. Yes.
The
So,
initials would be caught, right?
yes. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good whatever you are to all of our friends out in Data Center Podcast land. We have Will Townsend. Raise your hand, Will. We have Paul Smith Goodson. Raise your hand, Paul. Oh, a salute, a poor salute at that. And myself, Matt Kimball, and at the temple, at the temple. And I'm Matt Kimball, and welcome to episode 53 of Data Center Podcast, sponsored by and represented by Moor Insights Strategy. We are a tech firm that talks a lot of cool stuff around technology, from chips to software to the cloud and to the way it gets used. And we have a lot of great opinions, none of which should be taken to go to your online trading account and taking action. If you do happen to, shame on you. That is not our fault. It's your fault, and you're a dummy. Can I say that?
It's kind of mean, Matt. Come on.
It is. Well, you have a Coco monkey racing hat on. That's kind of mean too. Those poor monkeys.
Yeah, I've been in Key West. I came in for the weekend with my wife to watch the World Championship of Powerboat Racing. If you've not heard of it, it's something that's done all around the world. I think it's like Offshore World is kind of the governing body. They do it every year in November in Key West. I've never been, so we were down here. You can tell I got a little bit of sun. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience for our viewers and listeners that haven't done it. What's really cool are the chase helicopters that follow these boats that go up to 150 miles an hour, depending on the class, and it's amazing. It was so much fun. I'm just hoping as I travel back to Austin today through Miami International Airport, one of the 40 high volume airports that are throttled with air traffic control, that I'm able to make it home okay. I've spent many an evening at local hotels near the MIA airport. I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, I'm just going to make the most of it.
No better place to be hanging out, though, if you're going to be stranded than right around Miami's airport, because that is luxury. Paul likes to hang out there in his off time. He vacations at the Miami airport, in fact. Don't you, Paul?
Just drive. You don't have to fly,
Sure. Hey, we have a lot to talk about today and little time to make it because Will is in a rush to go miss his flight. So we're going to be talking Arista. We're talking our friends at, strangely enough, we're talking quantum. I don't know who that would be. And then we're going to hit up on Cisco, AMD, and IBM, three titans of the technology world. So the cretins are going to be talking about the titans. I like this. Mm-hmm. Let's jump in and hit on this. Will, I think you're kicking us off, right? With your discussion.
Arista Networks. Yeah. So, I thought, I haven't really spoken a lot about Arista on, prior podcasts. I mean, obviously, they're a big player in the data center from a networking perspective. And so my pithy little headline today is, can they push past the data center? So about 5 days ago, they announced 3Q earnings, and they continue to rock it. 19 consecutive record quarters, the company says, of growth. Top line revenue this past quarter, $2.31 billion. That was up almost 28% year over year.
Wow.
Gross margins of 65%, operating margin of 48.6%, diluted EPS, non-GAAP, 75 cents a share, up 25%. So they continue to rock it. Now, where they have been traditionally I stopped drinking yesterday, so I'm in Key West, but I am sober for this podcast. Where they have been weak traditionally has been in campus and branch. But what's interesting, the company acquired VeloCloud. They're an SD-WAN SASE provider, acquired them from Broadcom. This was several months ago. And Todd Nightingale has also joined. So I've known Todd for a number of years. He and I got to know each other when he was at Cisco running the networking business there. And he's now the COO and president at Arista. And he and I had a chance to speak, several weeks ago. And this is an area where they're going to really have to grow. And I don't necessarily believe that Velo Cloud is the tip of the spear for them to be effective in campus and branch. But it certainly gives them a door opener. And this is going to be really critical. I mean, they continue to post pretty impressive gains on their core data center business. But in order to better compete with the likes of HPE and Cisco, they're really going to have to push into campus and branch. And there was a sort of a virtual event that I attended back in September, and their CEO sort of spoke to what they're doing there. They're going to put a lot of investment behind it, but it's going to be fun to watch. And certainly their success from a profitability and revenue standpoint provides them the capability and the ability to be able to feed necessary funding into those areas of the business that they've traditionally been weak in. And I don't know, Matt, if or Paul, if you follow Arista closely, but what are your thoughts?
Did you hear anything about why the margin had dropped? It dropped from 65 to somewhere around 62, didn't it?
Yeah, it dropped a few points. I don't really have a lot of color on that other than obviously when you look at the race for AI infrastructure deployment within the data center, they're probably having to sharpen the pencil a little bit. I would expect. I don't think they necessarily need to buy customers because they've traditionally been very strong in data center. But
I heard,
Matt, you know this, right? It's very competitive.
I heard that some of the hyperscalers are negotiating a lot harder, and competition is getting tougher and various things.
Yeah.
I think that's where my question for you as well. I mean, you are Mr. Networking. And when we look at that kind of campus space, do you feel like that's a market that is easily, I shouldn't say easily, is even penetrable? Or do you think it's kind of how hard is it going to be for them? It seems like, HPE has a very strong footprint there. Cisco is doubling down on their efforts to, maintain strength there.
Yeah, no, it's pretty formidable. It is, and the barrier to entry is quite high. I mean, if you look at Extreme Networks, I mean, they've sort of been pegged at $1 billion in top line revenue in that space, but they don't. But Extreme also doesn't have like the strength of they've got some data center switching, but they haven't really had the strength to really sort of expand their addressable market. I agree with you. I mean. And we've spoken about HPE and Juniper in the past, and those two companies coming together. I mean, there's still some work that needs to be done there, right? With blending roadmaps and that sort of thing. It's going to be tough, but I do believe that Arista can carve out some share. It'll just time will tell how much they can carve out, because I mean, you've got two really strong incumbents with Cisco and now the combination of HPE and Juniper. So,
but I do think it's healthy to see. No one likes a monopoly. No one likes a duopoly, right? It's healthy for the market to have, established entrants kind of competing against, maybe some of the bigger folks. It just keeps that innovation cycle going, and that choice to customers is always, always, always a good thing. So,
I agree.
It's good to see. It's good to see that movement, and you hate to see markets where kind of everybody gives up, if you will, and just kind of cedes to the top, the top couple of providers. So
for sure,
they're caught between Cisco and Juniper and the AI native startups, and then they have to compete against the hyperscalers. So they're going to be.
It'll be fun to watch. So I have another one I want to hit on. Speaking of AI, there's this company out there called Vast Data. I say that jokingly because they are the darlings of every AI evaluator out there. They call themselves a startup. I struggle with that because they have a $9 billion valuation. And I would never assume that a $9 billion valuation could be tied to a startup. I come from the land of real startups where you're barely making payroll. Anyway, VAST has been fantastic at creating what they call the AI operating system or the AI data platform for organizations that have data at scale, like lots of data. I've got to organize this. I've got to cleanse it. I have to make it ready to feed those AI data pipelines, whether I'm feeding a model or whether it's being used for real-time inference. They just struck a deal last week with another darling of AI called CoreWeave, one of the quote-unquote neo clouds that is effectively doing the training for so many of the large primary cloud service providers out there, such as Azure. I think Azure represents like 70% of their business. It's a $1.17 billion deal for VAST that's going to last between 3 and 5 years. And as part of this agreement, CoreWeave will use VAST as its primary data platform. So its entire cloud infrastructure, they're going to take the data AI, the VAST AIOS, integrate it very tightly into their GPU infrastructure, and use it to deliver training and inference services. So it's interesting, right? And you're like, okay, 1.17, really great deal for a startup, but what does this actually mean? Here's what it means to me. VAST has done a great job of going and scoring wins with really big cloud providers and a lot of these neo clouds and companies that have, I don't want to say zettabyte, but petabyte scale kind of an exabyte scale kind of storage, right? Storage requirements and data requirements. They do really good at those huge data installations that need to take all that data and kind of put it into a universal platform. That's great, but for them to be viable longer term, there's this need to play into once you get this organized, how do you play in the bigger AI game, right? Which is the enterprise and which is inference. For me, this deal. Oh, by the way, NVIDIA, funds and supports CoreWeave, right? And they're a very large customer, and they're really tight partners with VAST Data. I mean, they work at very, very low levels to make sure that the Bluefield GPUs or Bluefield DPUs being used by NVIDIA are being fed thoroughly and quickly by VAST Data to make sure those GPUs are constantly busy. They've perhaps the tightest integration with the data management platform in the market. Mm-hmm. So you bring together the darling of data management, the darling of neo clouds, and the king, if you will, of accelerated compute into one integrated solution. And not only does it deliver value for training needs today, but as we move, and we're moving very quickly from training phase of AI into the inference phase of the market adoption, this sets VAST up so well to provide those inference services both from the cloud, and it gives enterprises a reason to give preference to what they're doing for on-prem deployments as well for inference. Because if I'm doing a hybrid approach, I want the same inference environment on-prem that I have in the cloud. So it really sets up VAST as being like the AI data architecture for the AI era. Going to be really interesting. I could go on and talk about this for hours, but I'm not allowed to because we'll have a flight to miss.
Send me a text when you get through talking, will you?
Oh, Paul.
So tell me what you guys think. What do you think? So, oh, by the way, the Wonder Twins thing, I was trying to be like Paul. If you remember from the 80s, the cartoons with the Wonder Twin powers where they could, combine and be something greater. Really, this is don't raise your eyes at me, Will, like you're mocking me. What do you guys think? Good story? You like it?
I think it's a good story, but I think VAST has got a pretty high customer concentration risk if something happened to CoreWeave, like a downturn, or they were acquired by another competitor, wanted to switch vendors, a lot of projected revenue is going to be at risk. I mean, I think they need to diversify the revenue stream a little bit. I think that should be a goal.
I would just say this. They had a $9 billion valuation before CoreWeave was ever introduced as a customer to the scale. So I think they have a pretty decent customer list as is. I think their biggest challenge is going from getting the biggest of the big customers to the customers on Wall Street. Like, how do you transition from exabyte scale down into kind of smaller customers that are using are activating AI on going to be doing it on a regular basis? I think that's where they're trying to kind of transition to what you're saying. It gives them a lot more volume, but it's going to be fun. I think this helps them get there. Well, what are your thoughts?
Well, I've got a question, and then I'll kind of give you sort of my thoughts. So you sort of talk about that they sort of position their architecture to kind of assist the whole notion of, if I interpreted what you said correctly, kind of, as AI moves hybrid from an inferencing standpoint, and I see the value in that, but you can also you can inference on x86, right? I mean, what about actual training? I mean, do they add any value from a training perspective as well?
Yeah. So this has Matt needs to learn how to explain himself. I'm sorry, I did a horrible job of setting this.
Well, I need to learn how to understand your high intellect and high IQ.
Yeah, that's what it is. Something like that. So yeah, architectural affinity does not play into this. So VAST runs, whether it's AMD or Intel, it runs very well on x86. One of its benefits is because it builds so much into the software, it doesn't really care whether you're running Intel or AMD, and it doesn't really care, what storage you're running on the back end. They don't have their own architected hardware storage solution. You can take off the shelf commodity hardware to build out your storage environment. Your training question is a really good question. So whether you are training or inferencing, there is a desire to move that data into the GPU as fast as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Not only that, you want to make sure you're feeding the right data in the clean data, right? Yeah. And that's where VAST works really well. It makes sure those DPUs that are, either NVIDIA based or otherwise, right? So either Bluefield or otherwise, are constantly fed with data. In fact, there's a very low level integration they built with Bluefield to make sure that and it's actually sitting inside of that DPU to make sure that those GPUs are fed. So making sure those GPUs are working constantly and getting data constantly and not waiting for that next stream of data to come is critical to training. You can argue it's even more critical to inference, because on training, if your model trains, an hour longer than it should have, over the span of a few days, you're like, what's another hour, right? It's not ideal, but it's not the end of the world. Okay. In inference, that data, that insight has to be instantaneous in some cases. Sure. Yeah. And that's where the value really gets realized, is on the inference side.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Sounds like the best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah.
Or the best thing since storage. I don't know. You choose.
And storage.
Anyway. So we're talking about quantum, and I don't know whose silly headline this is, but Qubit Wars, the power play. You always have to outdo me, Paul. You always outdo me and Will together combined. Qubit Wars. What are we talking about here? The power player? What's going on here?
Yeah, I got thinking about it. I think it's important to point out that we're pretty lucky to have quantum set up like it is. I mean, we've got usually got a couple of pretty strong players going against each other using different modalities. And that's the case, basically with quantum, with Quantinuum and with IonQ. They're both, pretty strong. They're both well funded. And they're going head to head in a competitive race to see who's going to get, working fault tolerant quantum computer before the end of the decade. I could go through the whole spectrum of companies and quantum and kind of give you a parallel for, like it'd be Google and IBM competing with each other. But just to stick with Quantinuum and IonQ, I'll just give you an idea of that. IonQ's got if you boil it down to what the philosophy is, IonQ thinks that they can build a bigger and better fault-tolerant quantum system using long ion chains and then using optical networking to couple them together. Quantinuum is a little bit different. It's got a zoned architecture. It's called QCCD, quantum. I forgot what it stands for now. I'm going to call it QCCD for 5 years. But anyway, it steers the ions through multiple zones that apply. As they go through a zone, then they get some type of quantum operation applied to it. But, so we've got different experiments running in parallel. I mean, that's kind of dramatic, I think. I mean, you can write a really neat story about that. Each company got a different architecture. It's got its own unique knowledge about different aspects of trapped ion. It's a trapped ion modality. And I mean, it's just kind of a neat story. They're both shooting for, like I say, a fault-tolerant quantum computer by 2030. They've also got quantum. It's got common challenges too. They're both working on error correction. They've got to work their own approach to scaling the qubits, using quantum error correction and different things. But they've got trapped ion as a modality. It's got a pretty high fidelity anyway. So they've got to work on things, and as they implement things, they can't degrade the high fidelity that they've already got, and they work pretty hard for that fidelity. Let's see. I think just give you an idea. In September, IonQ announced their new quantum computer, Tempo, and it has what they call an AQ of 64. That's like 64 qubits that are actually doing work. If you run this out to 2 to the 64th, that means that computer is capable of addressing 18 quadrillion computational possibilities. So if that, just by adding, a few qubits, made that quantum computer like 268 million times more powerful than the AQ26 model that they had previously. So adding one qubit basically doubles the power of a quantum computer. So that's why. Another goal is to reach basically 80,000 logical qubits by 2030. And, from the looks of things, it looks like they're going to do it. Quantinuum has not been that specific, but they've got a similar goal internally that they're switching from ytterbium to barium ion qubits. And in November, earlier this month, they announced that they were going to produce a 98 barium ion qubit machine, and with really high gate fidelity, like what I think it was 99.921, and what they're shooting for is 99.99. And they need high gate fidelity and speed for a couple of reasons. One, you start setting up a couple of million gates, it's going to take you a long time to set them up. It's going to take you a long time to tear them down if you don't have the right speed. So that's one thing that they're working on. It looks, I mean, it looks neat. I'm waiting for this head-to-head match to come about. I've been following quantum for 5 years now. It doesn't seem like more than 5 months, but we've got a couple more years to go, and there's going to be many companies, I think, breaking the fault-tolerant barrier. And when we've got fault-tolerant quantum machines, it's really we're going to do some really neat computations and crack a lot of the problems that we've been hoping we could solve for many years now. So one thing that's kind of speeded things up is that they found a pretty good way of using logical qubits for quantum error correction. And that's always been a problem, is trying to run computations before all the quantum state runs out of the qubits. So we're on a good path, and we've got many modalities that are got several quantum companies involved in it. So we've got the benefit of looking at these models from a completely different standpoint and benefiting for the diverse ways that we're approaching it. So that's basically the story I've got. I think it's a pretty neat story.
It's a great story. I have one quick question, and that is, you look 10 years out, right? Whenever quantum becomes mainstream, right? I don't want to, some people would have you believe it's 5 years out. Others think it's more realistically 10 to 15 years. But when it becomes more mainstream,
we're I think 5 years is pretty close to the mark.
Okay, so 5 years. So we get to the point where companies like Quantinuum, IonQ, Google, IBM, everyone has their kind of quantum service. Is there, Intel and AMD are different companies, but in classical computing, they're different companies, but it's x86 and 90% of what you can do, and probably much more than that now, that you can do on one, you can do on the other without having to rewrite or port code. It feels like quantum is you're going to have to choose your kind of company of choice and kind of embed or embrace that. Or is there an abstraction layer or tooling that allows you to say, that allows you to kind of program or create your workloads and run it on any of these kind of systems?
That's what IBM's got Qubit that basically does that. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to program quantum computers than writing the code down, at chip level. You don't have to do that anymore. So and then they've got different error correction strategies. IBM has got something called quantum. We talked about, I don't know if you remember or not, but they call quantum low density parity check, QLDC. It requires fewer physical qubits per logical qubits, but that's got problems. I mean, what they're working on now is developing long range connectors to connect these chips together, and that's pretty difficult. But they're managing that and they're working on it. And Google, on the other hand, when you look at their chip, Willow, I mean, they're focusing in on, instead of low density parity check, they're focusing in on surface code. That's good, but it requires pretty husky overhead, physical qubits compared to logical qubits. So, and not only do they have their own particular problems for within a given modality, they've got very common problems too. So.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, sorry to me to go off and just kind of questions always pop into my head when you start talking about quantum. All All right, let's go on to next. So what's this Cisco Partner Summit where you were at, Will? What's this thing about?
Well, I thought you were with me too, Kimball. Was
there.
that your AI twin, your digital twin?
I can't divulge any secrets.
Yeah, so I thought I'd dedicate one of my topics this week to kind of do a recap on Partner Summit. I mean, there was a lot going on. You would just think that, hey, Cisco does this every year, and it's a celebration of their partners, and they do some awards and whatever. But they continue to use, not only Cisco Live, but this event as well, to showcase a lot of innovation. So, but first and foremost, there's a new channel chief. His name is Tim Coogan. I got a chance to meet him. He replaces a gentleman that had been recruited from Microsoft. And I forget, his name was Rodney. I forget Rodney's last name. Apologies, Rodney. But the decision was made to find someone internally. So Tim's a longtime Cisco employee. He's been with the company, I think, 26 years. And he served in a number of different roles. He's very well liked, very well respected. And so this was his opportunity to lead Partner Summit, discuss what the company is focused on. There's a brand new program called 360 that is launching next year. And I'm not going to go into a lot of those details because I think our viewers and listeners are more interested in, sort of the tech behind all of this. But long story short, I believe, just having spent time in the channel, both in sales and marketing roles, what Cisco is doing to align, compensation to, desired behavior and driving better customer experiences is all a very, very good thing. But in particular, getting to a couple of announcements that I wanted to highlight. The first is around something called Cisco IQ. And no surprise, this is an agentic framework. And it's allowing partners and managed service providers to deliver what the company is positioning as more resilient connectivity and optimize business outcomes over the entire IT lifecycle. So I did provide some details and tidbits on my social handles, so I would encourage our viewers and listeners to tune into that. The company also launched something around an edge-enabled solution. So I know this is a data center podcast, but what I really like about this particular offering is that Cisco is recognizing that given AI and given how it's moving hybrid from cloud-hosted large language models to smaller language models on AI-enabled devices, they've developed, it's a pretty compact form factor. It's going to enable edge AI use cases where data is created. And again, I don't want to go into a lot of details, because it'll probably get too technical. But again, my biggest kind of takeaway is that the innovation just continues to roll at Cisco, and they're not letting off the gas at all. And actually, I really like what they're doing with this edge AI solution. I mean, this is an area that that I think every connectivity infrastructure provider is focusing on right now. But I like what they're doing. And it should be interesting to see how it all rolls out. But you were definitely there. So what was your thought about that edge-enabled solution?
All right. I will admit I was there. All right. The jig is up. The jig is up. So two things. Number one, the unified edge solution is really cool to me. I do, like you said, I believe bringing AI to where the data is super important, especially in those environments where latency is your worst enemy, right? And I think what they're doing, they're building out unique compute platforms, but a unified stack, from compute to networking to data and storage all together to kind of drive that unified experience. That was great. Number two, I love that it feels like Cisco is starting to realize the importance of its compute portfolio in all of the AI game, right? They rightfully say that networking is the foundation, or I like to call it plumbing, is the foundation to your AI experience, because you got to move data as fast as you can. But it's almost, it's equally important is that compute stack you have that is integrated tightly with your networking stack. And this demonstrates kind of their awareness of that. I had a great chat with Danny McGinnis, who runs their compute world, and it's a great reinvigorated kind of team that is going after this. Third thing, and I'll quit after this, is I don't want to go. You're right about the not wanting to go too much into the details around 360, but one of the things I found super interesting, and it was super coincidental. I promise I did not know that they were going to talk about this, but on the second day of Partner Summit, I put out a LinkedIn post that talked about saying I was getting ready to walk into their keynote, but here's what I wanted to hear was that they were helping channel partners figure out how to stay relevant in this AI game. If you think about it, right? If I'm an enterprise IT organization, I don't necessarily need a channel partner to sell me boxes. Number one, I have AI and this thing called ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity to help me figure out kind of what my needs are and what a good fitted solution is for me, right?
Yeah.
So the role of the channel and kind of figuring out those AI solutions it's become less and less, and especially as companies like Cisco build their quote unquote AI factories, right? So Tim focused on, you have to build a new set of competencies. It might be around data management, it might be around data governance, it might be around, building out the optimal network architecture to support this infrastructure build out that you have.
Or delivering data sovereignty. I mean, that was another thing that Oliver Tusek spoke to as well. Yeah.
Yeah. These are all critical things that, channel partners didn't necessarily do as much in the past. And the cloud always had the answer for AI as being they were the easy button for AI, but they don't have that customer intimacy. And I think this is where the channel can do very well, is kind of building out these competencies. And to see Cisco identify this and then, actually wrap a formal program around how you help the customers or the channel get there was, to me, it might've been my biggest takeaway. Because you can have great product, but helping your partners figure out how to be successful is really great. And they didn't just lead with, here's how to sell our solutions. It was, here's how you can be successful, Mr. or Miss Channel Partner. And by the way, work with us as well. So those are my takeaways, much aligned to yours. Great story, great time, and I love San Diego.
Yeah, I do too. And, the other thing too was interesting. So GT Patel was on stage and talking about the importance of data. And we all three know that, given what's required for modern AI. And he basically told the audience that if you don't have a Splunk practice, you should create one. I'll be a little critical. I think he could have followed that up with, here's how Cisco can help you do that, right?
Yeah.
Because you still have a lot of ours, you still have a lot of resellers that are moving boxes and moving Cisco pods and all of that. But that is more of like a consulting service, a managed service. I would have liked to have seen a little more detail behind how they can do that. And actually, I provided some feedback to the analyst relations team on how I thought they could sort of follow up on that that rally cry, because there is a lot of value there with Splunk, and there's a tremendous opportunity to sort of land and expand what Cisco's reseller community is doing with establishing Splunk practices. So little criticism sandwiched in with a little bit of love.
They have a great portfolio.
They do.
Great portfolio. All right, because I keep talking and interrupting you guys, I'm going to just jump into my next topic, go over that quickly, and then let Paul close us out with a huge home run. You better be ready, Paul.
I'm ready.
He's ready.
If you need to nap during my segment here, you can.
My right foot is pawing the rug as we speak.
But that's for a different reason. All right. My case for AMD and enterprise AI. All right. So I love NVIDIA. I love me some NVIDIA. And I think they are the kings of AI, certainly in this training era. But I think the market is wide open for AMD as we kind of move from training into training and inference inside of the enterprise. And here's why. AMD has a complete portfolio that spans from client to networking to server to specialized server, and server from a traditional compute and from an accelerated compute perspective. And they have a solid footprint in the enterprise today. And if I am an enterprise, and if you think about what the modern enterprise is going to look like in 5 years, it's going to have dozens, if not hundreds, of specialized models, either working independently or working in conjunction with a frontier model. It's going to have MCP servers and other inferencing infrastructure to help deliver agentic AI across the environment. And it's going to have all kinds of different inference use cases out there. Some that are super latency sensitive, some that are not so latency sensitive, some that require a GPU, some that can work perfectly well on a CPU. So it's going to be a mix of infrastructure that gets deployed in the enterprise to enable, oh, and by the way, you're going to be doing this on the client as well as in the data center.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So you have this mix of infrastructure and right-sized infrastructure that's going to be absolutely critical to employing or deploying enterprise AI, especially given the power constraints we have today and we're going to have 5 years from now. And that is where AI or AMD is going to excel. Oh, and one other part to that. Your commercial enterprise can't afford to spend, $40,000 on every GPU that they are deploying into the enterprise. They need something that's a little bit more cost effective. So while we talk about TCO all over the place in traditional enterprise IT, TCO is going to matter more in enterprise IT. It's going to be in form of, cost per token, some other metric, performance per watt, performance per dollar, performance per token, or cost per token. These are all metrics that are going to be used. And I think these are metrics where AMD is going to be able to go after that business and present a very, very strong case to an enterprise IT user. Here's the challenge. Dell, HPE, Lenovo, Cisco, I don't want to call Supermicro out, but those are the 4 biggies that sit inside the enterprise data center. You have got to find a way to activate these companies and really kind of help them embrace. We're going to go from AI factories to AI mini factories that are running in these enterprises, and you've got to become a critical part to those reference architectures. And then you have to turn on the channel and the GSI community that is going to be so critical to activating these efforts within the enterprise. If you can't do that, you're going to be lost. But they have a real opportunity in front of them. And I'm not saying they're going to replace NVIDIA. I'm not saying they're going to challenge NVIDIA the way they have Intel. But they have an opportunity to greatly expand their footprint within that enterprise data center with AI, and if they play their cards right, it's going to play out very well for them. That's my 2 cents. I'll let you guys weigh in and tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right, Matt. And they're a strong number 2, and there's a lot to be said about being a very strong second choice, right? And Intel is going to really have to address their roadmap, right, to compete with AMD, at least in the GPU category, from my perspective. So, call them the value leader to NVIDIA, call them whatever label them whatever you want. I do think their prospects are quite strong. And, Dr. Lisa Su continues to demonstrate, operational excellence at AMD. You're a former employee, and, that wasn't always consistent, right, over the years until she took over about a decade ago. So I do like their prospects. I've worked with the Pensando team. Obviously, Pensando was an acquisition by AMD. Very strong, front end, back end networking story. Very strong Ethernet portfolio. To your point earlier, Matt, you're going to need that to move all the data around. And then they've got the compute capabilities, as well. So yeah, I like them as a strong number 2.
Love it. Paul, any thoughts from you before we move on
Yeah,
to?
I think you guys covered it all.
All right. We're saving the best for the last. Paul's the closer.
Paul.
It's about my favorite topic.
You know what I'm going to do for the next podcast? I'm going to create an intro song. Every time we transition to your segment, I'm going to play some song to some hype music to get everybody excited for
Star Trek wouldn't be bad.
No, I'm talking like the Gap Band, like You Dropped the Bomb on Me or something like that. I don't know. Something. Maybe some Zeppelin. I don't know. Stairway to Heaven. Anyway, DARPA's Quantum Elite. What the heck is this?
Well, you guys know what DARPA is, I know. It's been a while back, but anyway, they started an initiative called Quantum Benchmarking Initiative. And the idea was to pick different companies, give them funding, give them DARPA help, and evaluate what their roadmap looked like for quantum computing. And I think there were 15 quantum companies, 15 or 16, I don't remember, that were chosen to be in that stage A part of the plan. And just recently, like last week, I think it was, they announced that they had picked 11 companies out of the first group to advance on to the stage B part of the program. They've got milestones, and they've got all kinds of verification and benchmarks and stuff like that they're going to run. But the end goal really is, can we actually develop a useful quantum computer by 2033? And there were 3 stages. The stage A was the concept stage that companies had to do describe what their quantum computer concept was, and it had to have a path where it could be realized in the near term. And I mean, there are 15 or 16 companies, but you would recognize just most all of them anyway. The government was going to try and determine if there's a utility scale quantum computer concept that could actually be built. And all this was, Group A was just basically a review process to look at all the companies. They gave them, I don't know, maybe could range up to $1 million or a couple $1 million to do this. So, but they wanted to find a company that could go the distance instead of just building out some pieces and kind of forgetting about it. And most of the companies that advanced, I think you've probably heard of anyway. Atom Computing, we had a lot of involvement with Atom Computing when they first ramped up. Another company, Dirac, out of Australia. Of course, IBM, and IonQ, and the familiar ones are Quantinuum and one called QEra Computing. They were originally like an analog quantum computer, and I think they pretty much switched over to, they could do either one, analog or digital. Okay. And that's an interesting company, and Xanadu out of Toronto. But DARPA they said they may grow that list, but they're not sure what they're going to do. So be fun to watch and see what comes out of this, and see if there are any. I'm sure there's going to be companies that come out of the stage C of this. Wow. The stage B is estimated to take about a year to go through. I worked with a couple of companies while they were going through it, and it's a pretty interesting process. DARPA is going to assess the R&D plan, what the prototype roadmap is, and what their mitigation strategy is for risk, and just about everything you could think of that would make a company viable and have a good chance of actually reaching the end goal, going through its business plan. So the stage C after B that they're going into is going to be the real test. There's no DARPA hasn't really given a list of what the proprietary tests are that they're going to run on these, but they said they won't slow the companies down as they go through this. So they get a little extra money. I think companies are probably more interested in doing it. We do know it's going to be things like qubit fidelity and coherence and how they scale and control electronics and things like that. So looking forward to it. Another fun project. Sit here and wait for a couple more years and see how this all turns out. But we've got, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, we've got basically all the modalities covered with the ones that they've chosen right now. Just wait and see what happens. Any questions?
Yeah. Just interesting to watch. It's I feel like every week I learn something new about quantum, but then I think to myself, hey, Matt, is it worth remembering this? Because it's going to change again next week. And before you know it, it's such an ever-changing, I hate to call it nascent because it's maybe not even nascent yet, but it's such an ever-changing market. And I don't know how folks like you are able to keep up. The quantum folks, but how you're able to keep up with all of the changes going on, all the new players, and you talk about different modalities and different error correction. And it's like, every time we have these podcasts, I hang up and I'm like, or hang up. Oh my gosh, I sound old, but I finish and it's like, my gosh, Matt, you are so ignorant on quantum. But I think that's kind of.
I've got a strategy. I've got 3 basic pitches on this that I do, and I just rotate them. And you guys forget about the previous 2 and listen to what I'm talking about. And then I'll go down to the first one I gave again, and I'll go through I've done that about 5 times, so it works.
All right.
And we're only at 53. You can run this thing out. You can run this the whole play.
No, we're getting there. I'm really excited about quantum now, and we're really making some.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, guys, we're coming up to the end. It's been a great conversation, but I know we're hitting one more stretch of crazy travel coming up before we shut down for the year. What do you guys got going on over the next few weeks? Anything interesting or?
Well, I'm headed to Tokyo on Saturday for NTT's R&D forum, so I'll be there next week. Then I'm back, and then what else do I have? I've got Barcelona coming up in early December. I may be actually getting over to Tel Aviv mid-December. We'll see. There's a potential opportunity for me to spend a few days over there, but yeah, it's like I don't really catch a break, Matt, until like right before the Christmas holidays. So, but I will be home for Thanksgiving. One of my daughters is able to come, so I'm looking forward to that.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
What do you got going on, Paulie?
I've got the entire month of from now until Christmas is over is installing batteries in all the devices that we've got that blink and chime.
Can you come to my house, Paul, and do that? Because
I went down to Costco yesterday with a wagon and hauled a bunch of batteries back home. So keeping busy.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm also working. I told you I'm working on a white paper that, for another self project that me and someone else are working on doing some fine tuning on a very large model, and we think that it's going to produce some really good results that no one else has got before. So
cool.
Right on. Very cool. Very cool. I'm going to be at supercomputing next week in the lovely city of St. Louis, everybody's dream destination.
The Midwest.
Yeah, you can say that about any city in the Midwest. And then We have Thanksgiving break, and then it's off to AWS reInvent. You'll be in Barcelona, Will, and then I'll be at Marvell's conference with you the week after that.
So. That's right. I didn't mention Marvell, so that should be a good one.
Going to be a fun few weeks. Yeah. Listen, thank you guys for taking the time. I wish your Longhorns good luck this week against Georgia. It's going to be a fun game.
Yes.
And until next time, I wish you guys a wonderful and safe week.
You too, buddy.
Did I get that right?
That sounds like a threat.
hey, be a shame if you didn't. You know what I'm saying? And Will, I hope you enjoy missing your flight.
I'm literally leaving like 60 seconds after we end the podcast. So.
We should try and drag this out a little bit more for him, Paul. What do you think?
Yeah, it might save his life.
Exactly. Do you have any stories you want to tell from your heyday? No? All right. I was going to kind of go down the Bell Labs thing or something, but we'll let Will go. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk. No, before we hang up, hang up. Before we go, one last time, not investment advice. Do not take this as investment advice, but please do like and subscribe, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thanks, Matt.